What's up, everyone? Welcome if you are here for the first time, and welcome back if you are returning. Thanks to all the new subscribers this week. Had quite a few, and I do appreciate that support. So, as is usual, we have nonstop soccer. We've got more on tap for tomorrow, Thursday. Including two EPL games. We've got the early game between Sheffield and Tottenham, and then a big one later between Manchester City and Liverpool. That Tottenham Sheffield game is also on a 4-game interleague slate. That's pretty solid too. But both of these games will have showdowns. The Tottenham Sheffield showdown, big GPP is 40K, and then we've got another 100K. As we've kind of become accustomed to here for that Manchester City Liverpool game, which, whether you're playing DFS or not, and just from a neutral perspective, should be a really awesome game between the two top teams in the league. All right, so quick peek at the odds here. Tottenham, a minus 110 favorite over Sheffield, about a half a goal favorite. And then this one's kind of interesting. Manchester City, a half a goal favorite, even money against Liverpool. And I think, I'll get into it here in a second with my projections and talk about why that maybe makes some sense. But these are the team level projections that I've been doing. This Sheffield-Tottenham game grades out very evenly. You see Tottenham leads in almost every category, but it's very slight. And then actually Sheffield comes out on top by less than a point. So I think in terms of fantasy scoring, this would dictate that either a 3-3 or a 4-2 build in favor of Tottenham would be the way to go here. I think a little context is important here. So, prior to the layoff for COVID, Tottenham were really struggling. And then Sheffield were just like cooking along all season, one of the most solid teams in the EPL. Rarely had a bad performance. And then fast forward, since the restart, Tottenham are fully healthy now. They have Son back. They have Kane back. They have Sissoko back. They have Lo Celso healthy. So just a completely different team. They look much more solid, especially defensively, albeit it's only been 2 games. And then, Sheffield have kind of been a mess. A tough game against United, but they get blown out of the water 3-0. They lost to Arsenal in the FA Cup. And then, this one's a little shocking, a 3-0 loss to Newcastle, who granted does look decent, but, in the earlier part of the season, you'd see Sheffield probably pick up 2 wins out of these matches and then have a really close game with United. So I definitely, I am a Tottenham fan, and I'm not being a homer here, but objectively speaking, I do lean Tottenham in this match to get it done. But the way, this projects out from a fantasy perspective, I think 3-3 could work out fine, although I probably am going to prefer going 4-2 in favor of Tottenham for my showdown build here. All right, let's take a look at City. So this is really interesting. From the team level projections here, City's coming out way ahead of Liverpool. And look, fantasy points are not always the best indicator of how good a team is or which team's going to win. They're often correlated, but not always. And so City has just been a more attractive team from an offensive perspective in DFS this season. So I don't think we should lose sight of that. And also, if you believe in expected goal metrics, City are outperforming Liverpool on the whole of the season, actually. So I think that's definitely interesting here. Of course, you've got all of this other stuff that you probably need to take into context. City cannot win the league, obviously, because Liverpool already did that. But they do have the Champions League still in the back of their mind. So you wonder, maybe Pep wants to prove a point that City can beat Liverpool in this match. And that's what I tend to think, their mindset will be. But at the same time, they don't want to, they don't want De Bruyne or Sterling or any of these guys to get hurt in this match, or like get a muscle injury from playing the full 90 and playing too hard, because they have that Champions League run, and that's kind of what their season is going to be about now. So I think there's a lot of questions about, what their mindset is, how they approach this game. And then you've got Liverpool, who just clinched the title, so, the rest of the season does not matter to them. They're also not in the Champions League anymore. So, you could make the argument that they are going to play really loose and look good, or, they could have that title hangover. And City comes out and wants to show the world, like, hey, we easily could have won the title. Look how good we are. So just a few things to think about there. In terms of the build for showdown in that match, I think 3-3 makes a lot of sense, and then 4-2 either way if you tend to think that one of these teams definitely comes out on top. But it's going to be a back and forth match. I do expect that, especially based on these projections, that City may be a little more attractive from a DFS perspective, but that doesn't mean that Liverpool don't end up winning this game. All right, so I want to run through lineups now. So let's start with Liverpool. I think they're probably going to put out a near full strength squad. They've had a big rest since the match where they clinched the title. The biggest thing to look out for is whether Andy Robertson is healthy enough to come back. He's missed a couple matches. If he does, he's going to be one of the best plays in this showdown slate because he was starting to actually split corners with Alexander-Arnold before getting hurt. So you're getting a guy that's like, like 60% of the price of Alexander-Arnold, but he still does plenty in an open play, and he's getting corners. So Robertson's really attractive. That's the thing about, like, Alexander-Arnold used to be this automatic lock all the time, but he's taking about half of the set pieces that he was before. Granted, he still is doing a ton in open play. Still a very solid play, but I don't think he's quite at that level where you just put him in and forget about it. Because then you also have a player like Salah with higher scoring upside, and he is chipping in on corners too, which gives him a bit of a floor. So those are just a few things to think about. Another thing I want to bring up, when you're looking at Liverpool, your upside guys are going to be Salah and Mane. Of course, Firmino's actually really underpriced. Could go overlooked in low-owned and large field GPPs, so keep that in mind. But, if we're going to get to, well, let's just get to the City lineup. And then so the projected fullbacks are Walker and Mendy. So with this lineup, you potentially, or you would have Mane kind of facing off against Benjamin Mendy on that side, and then, against Kyle Walker. And then Salah going at Benjamin Mendy. So Kyle Walker is a much better defender than Benjamin Mendy. Mendy is more so in there for his offensive abilities, his crossing. So if that's the case, I like Salah better as a play, not only because he's taking corners, but because I think he can really take advantage of Mendy's defensive lapses, whereas Kyle Walker's got all the pace in the world, and if anybody can keep up with Mane, it's Kyle Walker. So just something to think about there in terms of upside. All right, City lineup. Aguero is done for the year, so Probably going to see Gabby Jesus up top. This projected lineup has City lining up a bit more defensively, which I do expect against Liverpool. So that means Gundogan and Rodri kind of playing in that defensive role. And then we could see De Bruyne in this number 10 role, flanked by Silva and Sterling. So for City, whether or not Mahrez is in could make a big difference here, because he's been splitting corners 50-50 with De Bruyne. So if this is the lineup we get and Mahrez is out, then I really like De Bruyne. If Mahrez is in with De Bruyne, then, at De Bruyne's price, he's always going to be one of the best plays. But you really have to consider whether you want to pay that much money for De Bruyne when you could have Mahrez for less, taking the same amount of corners. And, arguably, or not arguably, he does have higher scoring upside and probably similar assist upside in open play. So, once again, something to think about there. All right. Let's move on to Sheffield. Sheffield just doesn't rotate that much. They play the same guys all the time. They will rotate it forward, but other than that, the biggest thing for them is whether they get O'Connell back. He's their best defender. He's been out. That's, I think, part of the reason why they've looked so shitty. If O'Connell is in, that is definitely a boost for the Sheffield defense. If O'Connell remains out, you probably lean more towards Tottenham having a better chance of getting a few goals in this game. So that's what I'll be looking out for. The problem with, I think I said like a 3-3 or a 4-2 in favor of Tottenham. The reason I think a 4-2 is better is because there's just like, what plays are you going to go with on Sheffield? Like, you could take Fleck, but then you're paying more for Fleck than you would be for Lo Celso from Tottenham. And they're both splitting set pieces. And then Tottenham's the favored team, so do you really want to pay more for Fleck than Lo Celso? I'm not sure that I do. I think a good place to get exposure from Sheffield would be the wingbacks. And Edna Stevens has not been performing all that great, but he's at a big enough discount from Baldock now that I think that makes him very attractive. The Sheffield forwards are going to be cheap, but the problem is they only go like 60 minutes every game because the two other guys come on and replace them. So Billy Sharp and I can't remember the other guy's name right now, but those guys just don't get a lot of minutes. So, all right, finally over to Tottenham. I think this is a pretty good look at what we're going to see. Tottenham are coming into this game on a full 9 days rest, so they should be really, really fresh here. Kane was looking a little tired in his return games, but he got 90 minutes last match. He got his goal, so I think he's in play. My favorite play on the Tottenham side is going to be Son. He's taking half of the set pieces, even with Lo Celso on the field, and he is their most dangerous attacker. So you combine floor and upside with him, and no player can match that combination of the two. So really like him. Lo Celso playing as a deep lying playmaker, but he is taking half of the set pieces. If Davies just does not get forward in the system for Tottenham, so I pretty much avoid him. Aurier, very active. He pretty much plays as a winger and is overlapping Bergwijn and setting in a ton of crosses. So he's very attractive, although I think he is priced up at about 8K. So, and then Bergwijn and Ali don't have great floors, but of course both are capable of a goal or an assist in this match. So the upside is there with them. All right. That covers it, guys. like I said, just to recap, the early match between Sheffield and Tottenham, I do like Tottenham to win this game. Probably a close game, 2-1 or something like that. And I think a 4-2 Tottenham build is the way I'm going to go for an optimal build anyway. And then that Manchester City Liverpool game, I very well could end on a 3-3. It'll depend largely on what we see from the lineups. If Robertson is in, he will be one of the first guys I choose. Alexander-Arnold and De Bruyne, great plays. But again, I think that whether or not Mahrez is in kind of dictates the value of De Bruyne. And then I do prefer Salah over Mane in terms of upside just because of that defensive matchup I talked about. All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in once again. If this is your first time, please do hit the subscribe button. I will be putting out a ton of soccer content as we ride this wave of soccer for the rest of the summer, basically on a daily basis. So good luck out there tomorrow. I'll see you next time.